So first and foremost, thank you everyone for coming out tonight to the Black Men Mental Health panel, a part of Black Mental Health Week. And we have amazing speakers joining us tonight. But before we get into that, we just want to, again, thank you for coming out and spending the time with us. And we hope that you join us for many, many more. So, what is Kajenga Wellness Project? So, Kajenga is a Black-led grassroots project designed to initiate supportive community resources for children, youth, adults, families in Durham region. We strive to build our community foundation, promote holistic teaching and education, and promote mental wellness and healing from trauma. Now, before we start tonight, we're going to start with the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice. Please let me know if it's choppy.
With every voice and sing to her. Someday, when I rejoicing, rise as high as the wind, sing, sky, sound. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has lost. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought. And I'm facing the rising sun. So in the road, we try to chance the started with the stand. Steps. Far away that with tears have been watered, we have no treading our path through the blood of the soul. Out from the gloom, we still we turn down like we want star sky. Straight from the places, our God, where we met thee. Let's go. Drunk of the wine of the world we forget. Shall be that our God
It was a little choppy. I was gonna sing and fill in the parts, but I didn't drink tea.
You should have. That would have saved everything. Apologies for the sound and how it's going. Now, straight into our land acknowledgement. Now, Kajenga Wellness Project acknowledges the lands and people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We are thankful to be welcomed to these lands in friendship. The lands we are situated on are covered under the Williams Treaties and the traditional territory of the Mississauga, a branch of the Great Ashinabeg Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. These lands remain home to a number of indigenous nations and people. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America, from before the arrival of settler peoples until this day. Most importantly, we remember the history of these lands has been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who call them home. This history is something we are all affected by, as we are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, then it does not have to define our future. Now for our anti-Black racism and African Canadian acknowledgement. As we begin, let's pause for a moment to remember our ancestral roots and the enslaved African people that were stolen from their homelands and traveled through the transatlantic route to build on lands we know as North America. Let us honor the enslaved people who built this nation. Let us recognize the histories of Ontario and across Canada as complicit with the racism of white supremacy. We recognize that these difficult histories persist in present-day racial realities. We commit to dismantling racism in all spaces, and we invite you to come together with us to create change. So now let's get into our evening. Before I start with our presenters, I would just like to say that tonight, we are allowing this space open for all those that identify as male. So we understand there are many people that are in the chat and that would like to comment, but I would like to ask the women out there or female identifying people to please keep your comments to yourself for tonight to allow the men a space to have some conversation. We're here to support with our listening ears tonight. Now, first and foremost, before we start, I'd like to introduce our moderators for the evening, which is John Jack. I don't know, John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, good night, everyone. It's John Jack. I'm here on behalf of Ifarada Center of Excellence and also the Kajenga Wellness Project. And I'm extremely excited with having our wonderful guests share this space with us.
Awesome. Oh, how convenient. My computer said, yeah, we're just going to close on you. Let's try that again.
No worries.
There we go. All right, so now let's get into our presenters. Let me make sure I have your wonderful pictures up because everybody wants to see your lovely faces. Okay, so first, we have Danny Stone with us tonight. Danny Stone, also known as Coach Stone, is a business coach. A business coach and consultant, media guest expert, international speaker, author, and community servant. He's the founder of Champion You Academy, an online platform that teaches entrepreneurs to make more impact, income, and influence. His podcast, The Grind and Gratitude Show, has reached listeners in more than 60 countries. And as a certified emotional intelligence facilitator, he guides individuals and employees understand their emotions, how to regulate their emotions, and how emotions factor into decision making. He believes everyone has an inner champion, and he teaches people how to break through challenges and live their full potential. So thanks for joining us, Danny.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Andre Dwight. Andre Dwight is a 35-year-old, well, not 35 anymore.
Right?
That's okay. 35 in the heart. 35 in the heart.
Right.
Year-old single Black gay dad of twins residing in London, Ontario. In the fall of 2017, Andre embarked on his journey to become a single dad via surrogacy with the help of an egg donor and a surrogate. His twins were born in the summer of 2018, to which he documented his journey on his YouTube channel, Single Black Gay Dad TV. Andre is a supporter of Black Lives Matter, women's rights, and LGBTQIA+ rights. Those matters are close to his heart. And last but not least, we have Marc Rainford. Marc Rainford has over 20 years of experience in community engagement with a specialty in youth and police engagement. He is a former Toronto Police Service officer with 15 years of experience in policing. In 2014, Marc was the keynote speaker at the Ontario Association of Chief of Police Conference on mental health in policing, and he continues to serve as a presenter on mental health resilience with the Ontario Provincial Police, Windsor Police, Durham College, and George Brown College, and a keynote speaker with the Toronto Catholic District School Board on student leadership and mental health resilience. So thank you all for joining us. I know that the conversation is going to be amazing tonight, but I will step away and let you all take the floor. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good night. Good night. Wonderful intros. I am happy that all of you are in this space. So our heavy topic of the night, no, not heavy. Our topic of the night is Black men's health. Just saying that, it's a very broad title because as we know that health falls under the umbrella of many different things. So with that being said, what does Black men's health mean to you, Danny?
Yeah, I think Black men's health means to me is living a full, vibrant life, like living your potential. And we know that as Black men, you know how society tends to portray us. So I think for me personally, it's seeing my full potential, understanding that I can do more in the world, understanding that I'm capable of so many things. But it means that I have to take care of myself mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I think sometimes along my journey and talking to other Black men, I think a lot of us, when we focus on Black men's health, or we focus on our health, if we do decide to take on that journey to better ourselves and better our health, a lot of us stay focused on the physical and the spiritual and the mental and the inner work. The mental health kind of gets overlooked. So for me, it's sort of a holistic approach to taking care of myself as a Black man so I can be at my best for myself, my family, my community.
I enjoy a lot of what you said right there, especially in terms of encompassing the physical, the spiritual, all of the above, in order to create that balance, in order to maintain your wellness. I agree with all of it. Andre, what is your lens of Black men's health?
Well, as you touched on balance, that was what I was thinking about when Danny was talking, just having a whole well-rounded picture of what it means to be healthy for us, which means like our health and like overall, like just Black men taking their health seriously, going to the doctor. I know a lot of us don't like to do that, but it means getting checked up on regularly, especially as we age. Anything that doesn't look right, sound right, feel right, get it checked out, get second opinions if necessary, taking our mental health seriously. A lot of us in our culture don't like to look into therapy or different remedies to deal with our various different issues, whether it be medication or traditional therapy, looking into all those different avenues, and overall just trying to be balanced in terms of our spiritual and other needs, and just trying to have a full rounded life where we are happy and we do put our needs first. Like for me in particular, like I make sure that when it comes to my happiness, I try to have something to look forward to every single day. To keep me going, because I feel like when you have something positive to look forward to, it keeps you going. There's something to look forward to, whether it be your favorite food, your favorite show, like just making sure that we put ourselves first. Because as a parent, a single parent at that, I just feel like if you don't fill your cup, you can't pour into others. So you got to make sure that you're well-rounded, and you got to make sure that you are pouring into yourself first in order for you to be able to pour outward onto others.
I enjoy that. Yeah. In order for you to pour, you need to make sure that you have all these things aligned first.
Yourself. You can't help others, you can help yourself.
No, but unfortunately, we do that.
You do. Yep. We're taught that, and we need to. That's what I always say, that life is a lesson in unlearning. There's so many toxic things that we were taught by our parents, and they weren't doing it to be malicious or anything. That's what they knew at that time. So now that we know better, we need to do better and know that certain things they taught us because at that time that was appropriate. Certain things are no longer appropriate. So now that we do know better, we have more information. We do have to break a lot of those curses and those chains. To do better for ourselves and our family and our children, so that we don't continue certain toxic behaviors going forward.
I like it. Absolutely like it. Marcus.
My brother, before I even respond, can you next time come to me first? Because following these two gentlemen is, I'm not going to play this game all night if this is what we do, right? If I could add to the space, when I think about, so let me start with health first. When I think about health, when we use the term health, we use it for it has different sort of stigmas, right? So when we say mental health, we don't actually talk about the resilient component of going from a place of mental wellness to mental illness. We've already allowed mental health to be co-opted to a negative, right? So that's my sort of piece, right? So I think even when we talk about, now coming back to Black men's health, I think Black men's health is a polarizing thing, because some people either think that we're in dire straits all the time, or some people put us that we are, just by the nature of male Blackness, we're at our optimal all the time, right? And I think that a more accurate picture is that all Black men are like all human beings. We're in a continuum. You catch us at a certain point in time, you take a snapshot, that does not extend to our entire existence, right? And so when I think of Black men's health, there are times when we are in poor health, some of it by our own inner workings, some of it by external factors, and other times we're at our optimal for those same reasons, right? Whether it be we have a culturally positive network, right? Or we have allies, and these things are they're interwoven with so many things, right? And as I share tonight, I really come at this from this notion of, I want us to encourage people to remember that both sides of this are part of the natural human journey. We should give space to Black men to be in poor physical health, poor spiritual health, poor mental health, and say that is just one stop on your journey. And likewise, when you get to the optimal of those things, we do not expect you to stay there indefinitely, because that adds a level of pressure that inevitably leads to the crash. So we really have to support each other in the notion of that continuity of ebbs and flows. And wherever you are, we will be there with you until you move. So if you move upward or downward, we accept whatever direction you're going in. Where I think it's critical for us is when you're in the valleys, we really have to be mindful of how long have you been there and what did you hitch up on?
Yeah.
Right? And how do we help you? Sometimes you actually need to stay there for a period of time to go through catharsis, to see the perspective you need. And so we can't, I think we're in a society now that is telling us we always must stay at our optimum, and anything short of that is some sort of a failure.
Some sort of a failure.
Right? But it takes many perspectives to see something accurately, and some of that is grief. Some of it is acceleration, failure, success. You need all of these perspectives to have a more beneficial contribution to those that you love, right? So that's sort of where I come from this.
I look at it as I look at mental health as a sliding scale. Like, we're all on the scale. Depends on what's going on in our lives.
Absolutely.
All a balance. We're never one place, or you shouldn't be one place too long.
Danny, you said in terms of mind, body, spirit, and also attempting to be the best version of themselves. How did you arrive to that?
I was struggling. I was struggling in my, I grew up in sort of low income housing, surrounded by a lot of drugs and crime, and a lot of friends in jail, friends got killed. And so I was just really a passenger in my life. I was a follower. I never had goals or hopes or dreams. And if I did, it was the fake dream of being a rapper, a basketball player. I was a passenger, right? And it was mentors. Like, my grandmother was a huge factor in my life that always encouraged me to do more, to be more, to ask questions, question yourself, question other people. And that kind of led me to kind of changing my life at 18. But I think I just became curious about the world once I started stepping outside of my environment. I was like, families actually sit down and have dinner together. I used to go to other people's house in white communities and other communities. They actually conversate about their day. They travel to places. So it kind of opened up maybe there's more for me. And why am I allowing other people to put limits on me? And so I just started becoming curious. And over the years, those ebbs and flows, as sort of Marcus was talking about, it was like, I found myself in the corporate world. And to me, that was supposed to be the ideal job. Work hard and get a corporate job. And I got the corporate job and I'm like, this is it. And I felt guilty about not feeling fulfilled in my life. I was like, I got the corporate job. Why aren't I feeling fulfilled? Why don't I feel great? Why don't I love myself? And I had to do some work. I often tell people I got to this place where I was just fed up and I was tired of the pity parties at everyone gets together at lunch and we complain about our jobs. And I was like, one day I was just like, why? We all have the ability to do something about this. So I asked myself this one question that I ask myself every time I'm not in a space where I physically, mentally, and spiritually want to be. I said to myself, what am I going to do to change my situation? And I went to all the excuses. And at that time I was overweight. I didn't have the confidence I had. So there were so many areas of my life that were suffering. And I kept coming back to that question. And I go to the same place that we all go to. Well, I can't do this. I can't quit my job. I got to pay my mortgage. And then I said, that's not the question. I went back to that piece of paper. What am I going to do to change my situation? And I kept just writing down all of these answers. And then I started taking action. And the next thing I know, I started to craft out a plan to leave my job, to take control of my health. I wrote my book, and all of these things just started to come into play. And I noticed different areas of my life, my relationships, my getting back to being resilient, my curiosity, my creativity, it all started to kind of come back. And I started seeking out mentors. I started seeking out coaching. And that's what really kind of changed my life. Just really diving into like, how do you change your life? How do you get the things that you want, even when you face adversity? Studying people like, Tony Robbins and, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols. And I just dove into that and got mentors and coaches. And that's when I kind of really started to make that shift in my life and started teaching other people to do the same thing.
You would say that you reached a point where it was time for you to invest in yourself.
I was tired of being comfortably uncomfortable.
I like that.
It's a lie. We tell ourselves this lie. Oh, it's okay. You love your job? No, I hate the job, but I'm okay. Oh, bro, I thought you used to be a basketball player, bro. You're about 150, 200 pounds overweight. Yeah, I know. You're not. I kind of get back to it. You're comfortably uncomfortable, right? You're shifting in your seat. You don't feel comfortable carrying the weight. You don't feel comfortable struggling financially, but you're kind of comfortably uncomfortable. So I just hit rock bottom with it. I said, enough is enough. Yes. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yes.
And mentors, coaches, and people who kind of poured into me. And I just started taking action. Because you can become a lifelong student, but never take action. Right? I was good. I went to this seminar, I read this book. I could tell you all the quotes, but never did anything. Like there was a point where I had to take action. And I was responsible for myself. I was responsible for my own health, my own well-being, and my family. So I had to take action at some point. I hit rock bottom.
That's fantastic, man. That truly is. That is a beautiful journey. Marc?
I'm triggered because I had this discussion today with one of my coworkers about the same thing. We were talking about our jobs and our future, and I was just saying to her today that I'm at a place right now where this no longer serves me and makes me fulfilled. And I was just like, this is not it for me. And I just was literally talking about this just today, that like, I want more for myself. I want to be doing something that I'm passionate about, that feeds me and feeds my spiritual every day, and not something that I'm just like, oh, I'm here again, not looking forward to Mondays and starting over the week. It's like, there's more to life than that. Like there's more to life than working towards something and the next thing and not loving anything you do. So I was literally having this discussion just today.
So
today. I think a pen and paper is our best friend. It's the most underutilized tool that is available to all of us. And when you have these things ruminating in your mind and you're like, oh, I got it, I know what I need to do. Do you really? Right? Write it down. There's a connection between, your brain and writing things down that solidifies it. And a lot of us don't want to write down our goals and our dreams because it's like making a contract with yourself. So we'll just say, oh no, I got it up here. And I always ask people this, like, if you got it up here, if somebody comes to you and approaches you who can help you achieve anything that you want, help you change your life, all you got to do is lay it out exactly what you want. Are you able to do that? And most people can't. I mean, this is what I clearly want in my life. This is what I want my life to look like. You can't. So writing things down and revisiting them over and over again is a great first start, And
it keeps you accountable, because even when it comes to like weight loss and fitness journeys, when you are writing down your weight and where you want to be and when you're supposed to be that, and you're not hitting those goals as the time passes by, it paints a holistic picture. Like, I could think about I want to be this size, but if I'm not taking the steps each day to get to that point, you're not going to ever get there.
Yeah, that's
true. Marc?
Yeah, so if I could extend on that a bit, one of my thoughts has always been that goals, right, are dreams with witnesses. Okay, so you can write it down on a piece of paper and you can throw it away.
Yes.
You can lie to yourself even on the paper. Whereas once you also write it down and also share with people what it is you're going to go after, right? There are people that will hold you accountable, right? But it comes with a second caveat. And this is something that I find really interesting about sort of the human condition, is that a lot of us, we've grown up believing that we are average. And it's a very dangerous thing, right? Because when you go and meet strangers and tell them your goals and tell them what you're about, because they don't know you, they're more prone to believe of your capability to achieve it than most of our friends are. Right? And the reason why is that rarely do average people believe that they are hanging around exceptionality. They see themselves as average. Therefore, the people around me are also average. And then when you decide to tell that average person what exceptional goal you have, they become afraid for you and start to take the legs out of your dreams, right? So sharing what it is that you want to manifest in your life is also a really good way to determine the quality of the people in your life, right? Because high quality people will light the fire under your ass if you haven't done something towards that goal, right? Whereas low quality people will silently let you come back to earth and live out this alternative life because they're comfortable with you staying average because they go, I'm average, right? Which is why people always tell exceptional people, oh, you've changed, right? And it's like, have I really changed? All I did was I went after what I always knew I could go after.
I evolved.
Yeah, right? I didn't change. You just didn't see what I saw and you wanted to anchor me to what you know me to be. Those things still exist. I just kept on going, right? So, it's a lot of this stuff, I think, coming back to that resilience piece and tying it back to our health overall, is that there is a real challenge about how we as Black men see ourselves, and being honest, right? And being honest about it, right? If your real sort of conviction is, you know what, man, I just want to put food on the table and I want to be there to see my kids go to bed every night, that is an admirable thing. And we should not be saying, hey, all of us need to be the greatest of everything. That's okay. If that's honestly what you want to be that. And we shouldn't expect every single person to have to be the world's greatest everything, right? And likewise, we have people that ascend to great heights and they too are lying to themselves about what they want to be. They want to be something really simple and they're trapped in this life of extravagance. They're in the same prison, a prison of their own making, living up to the expectations of everybody but themselves, right? So, I think that's where a lot of work has to be done, is allowing people to honestly say, this is what I want to be. And this is what I'm working towards. And if you achieved it when you're 20, you're running your dream at 20 until whatever. And if that's driving the bus, I mean, I'm sure we all see the videos of the guys driving the bus that sing to the customers coming in. And how many people's lives does he impact? Do we now need to say, well, because he's got a nice voice on the bus, that he now has to be a Grammy winner? Why? Right? Why? Right? But if he wants to be a Grammy winner, then he should pursue that. Get off the damn bus and go to the studio and right?
Just like
so,
pick up, go and start. But my question to you, Danny, is when you decided to construct this list of to-do things, when you actually took a step back and you looked at that list, did you feel that it was all achievable?
No. It was overwhelming. And this is the problem with setting goals. Like when we set goals, usually the goal is too big, right? And that's why you have to break it down into smaller steps. And I think for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I want to buy a home. and you're trying to buy a home in Toronto, and then you automatically go to, well, here's all the reasons I can't. Houses are, $2 million. And well, what's the first thing you can do? What's the first step? You got to take the first step. And so, I always say this to people, like one of the biggest lies that we've been told is that you just got to believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself and get started. Well, nobody believes in themselves, so then they're never supposed to get started. The truth is that progress equals belief. So the more progress you start making in an area of your life that you know you want to grow, the more that you actually believe is possible.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm 2 weeks in and I'm further ahead than I was 2 weeks ago. Well, let me take a couple more steps. And so what happens when you start to make progress and you really start to see some things happening or some shifts in your life, then you want to do more. You want to learn more. You want to take more action. It's like, when I went back to the gym after I hadn't been there for 8 or 9 months, it's like, man, I can't lose this 30, 40 pounds. It's too much. I can't. But I just had to put my sneakers on and get out the door. I got out the door, I got to the gym. It's like, okay, it's still going to be hard to lose this 50. But I did it the next day. And, 3-4 weeks later, I'm down 2 pounds. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's the progress. And not only do you believe, but kind of like what Marcus was saying, other people start to believe. The people that didn't believe in you are like, oh, well, this dude might actually write this book, or this dude might actually become a speaker, or he might actually, lose that weight. That's what happens with progress. But we got to stay focused and disciplined, and we got to get clear about what we want, not what other people want us to want. And I felt like as a man and as a Black man, I was allowing other people to tell me what I should want, how I should move in the world, what I should do. And I'm like, those aren't my goals and my dreams. And so because I was following those goals and dreams, I had this misalignment with who I thought I should be. And that caused a lot of internal turmoil with me. Like I didn't feel worthy of some of the things that I wanted. It reflected in my relationships. I didn't want to be around people, and I'm a social person. And so I kind of felt myself sinking. But I should have been happy. I had the corporate job, right? So I had to question, like, what do I really want? And I think a lot of us need to start there. The reason why you might be misaligned, or you might be feeling depressed or feeling like you're left behind when you look at other people is because you're not clear about what it is that you really want in all areas of your life. And once you have clarity, then you get focus, and then you get disciplined. But a lot of us don't have clarity. So we're chasing everything that everyone else has, every idea that our friend had. Oh, I'm making money doing drop shipping. So you do that, but you don't really like it. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And we chase other people's version of what our life should be. And you're never gonna have this joy, fulfillment, and happiness if you're not true to who you are and what you want.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could jump in, Denny, that's such a great point. And I think one of the challenges, how people start out with what they want, it's a reverse engineer, right? It's, what am I going to have for dinner is what's in the cupboards, right? Treating their life like my dinner tonight is predicated on what's in the house versus this is what I want for dinner. Oh, it's not in the house. Let me go out the door, go to the store, and get the ingredients for what I want.
Yes.
But people do that with their lives as well. They say, okay, what do I want? And they're like, well, what I want, okay, based on what degree or what level of education, based on who my hookup be to get me in the door for something. So now they create the structure and say, I want whatever's within this, because that to them is how they get there. And so, how I look at it is the whole notion that shortcuts are the longest road to success. Right? People are always looking for the shortcut. They take it, it doesn't work. Then they look for another shortcut to get where it doesn't work. Then they look for another one. It doesn't work. And then eventually, after enough shortcuts, they go, I have to go to the gym. I can't take the magic pill. I can't do the vibrate machine. I can't do meditation to burn off fat. Like, I need to actually move my ass, and I need to monitor my diet. Yeah. But they try everything else first, right? And then they've exhausted all the shortcuts, and then it's, I gotta put in the commitment and the work.
Yes.
Right?
No, can I just say one thing about that, Marcus, and and Andre and John? It comes down to identity, because what you just said was, what is your identity? Do you identify as somebody who's healthy, who takes care of themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually? If you do, then you will go out and buy the healthy food. It's an identity. It's an identity thing, right? Because if you look at an athlete who wants to be great, they might take those shortcuts in the beginning, but they realize that if I identify as a high performing athlete, that's the identity shift. What does a high performing athlete do? What did Michael Jordan do? What did Tiger do? What did Kobe do? Now I see them. Do I identify as one of them? Do I identify as a great Black father? Do I identify as a great Black husband? And if I do, who are the people that I see that are doing that? And then now I have to identify with them to become that.
Brilliant.
Not take the shortcut. You got to make an identity shift.
Yeah.
The shortcuts are going to take you back every time.
Oh yeah.
You can't do regular things and expect like extraordinary life. Like, you have to make the changes, make the shift in your mindset in order to realize you're better, to get better.
Yes. Yes.
And Andre, you said today was the day you had that discussion in terms of, I need to make a shift. I need to make things better. I am not happy where I'm at. How did that make you feel? And what are the current steps you're doing to actually embrace that change, to make that change?
Well, for me personally, like, I have a passion for like entertainment, and I've been getting into sewing and doing a lot of things, and like slowly over time, it's been building my confidence. Like, a lot of things that I'm making, people are like shocked, like, you don't do this for a living? Like, what are you doing? Like, those are the types of things that are getting in my head. Like, at first it was like a hobby, something I did, like I do for fun, or it's dress up and things like that. And then as I'm doing it, the more I do it, the more people I speak to, strangers, people who know me, like, they're like, I'll pay you to make things for me. Like, this could be a business. Like, you could turn this into something else. So the more that I'm starting to build my confidence in those ways, and then I come to a job to do a mundane task for someone else, to build up someone else's business. I'm like, if I were to invest in myself and put that energy into something that I'm passionate about, that would make me a lot happier. It would make me live a fully fulfilled life and do all the things that I'm destined to do, because I know that I'm not an average person, a regular person. I know that I'm destined for greatness. So I know that living an average life, which may work for everyone else, is not enough for me. And a lot of I'm realizing slowly as time goes by, I'm like, a lot of the skills that I have that I can do naturally, there are people out there making a lot of money doing those things, and not even to the level that I can do it. So why am I cutting myself short, making an average income, when I can put my skills into things that could change the world, change other people's lives, that are a lot more than what I'm currently doing at my 9 to 5. So I started to think about all those things, because I guess we get into this mundane path of just our everyday average life, and we're fine with it, or we think we're fine with it. And then you start to see, like, I have other passions that I could turn into business ventures and make me happy and fulfilled in those other ways. And then you start to really think, and that's what as Danny was saying earlier, like, making notes, like, what are the next steps? What do I do? How do I make a business, like a business proposal? And those are the types of things that my mind's starting to slowly shift towards. Like, it's just a whole holistic process and identity change, as he was mentioning earlier, where I'm starting to build my confidence first and foremost, knowing that I can do it, know that I'm capable of doing it, know that it's for me, and then slowly making that transition where I can one day put in my resignation and focus on the things that I'm passionate about, that will fulfill me in every aspect of my life. So like today, I think I've been feeling that way for a while, but today was the day that I actually said out loud, I'm like, wow, like this could really be a thing. And surprisingly, as Marcus was mentioning, is like when you talk to certain people, like if you talk to an average person, they'll likely try and talk you out of it, or they'll convince you that that's not possible. But talking to my coworker, she's like, yeah, like your stuff is amazing. Like every time I make things, people are like, you made that, like for real. So like I'm seeing, like just seeing that, like I believe in me, but seeing that other people also believe in me too, like it's giving me the kickstart to make me realize that maybe it's not just a me thing. Maybe I need to really see what this could be.
It's not a you thing. You definitely can have your clothes in New York Fashion Week. You can do that. You can do that. Like, I know exactly how you feel, bro. It was 2014 when I made the decision to leave my corporate job. And I mapped out a plan. I started, just like you did, I started my own consulting company on the side. I wrote my book, You Have the Keys, Now Drive. And 6 months, I worked the plan. And in 6 months, I walked into my job. I said, here's my 2 weeks notice. And when everybody said, where are you going? I said, I don't feel like telling you. And the very last day, I said, look, my book is out on Amazon. I secretly have my own company. Thank you. And so you can do it. You can definitely do it. If people are telling you they see something in you, it's in you. Just stay curious. Stay curious. Keep writing things down. Come up with a logo for your business. Start to, purchase a domain name. Like, just do things. Yep. It doesn't have to be a perfect plan. Just do something towards what you want, and you'll wake up one day and be like, I'm about to leave my job because my side hustle is my real hustle. So just stay curious, man. Stay focused. Every day, put time into your craft. Continue to, design clothes, make clothes, and the plan will come together.
Is there anywhere in all of your journeys, Danny, Andre, Marcus, where you being Black was a hindrance, where it became a roadblock for your ability to move forward and your ability to be well?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was working in the financial area. So I used to manage training and do coaching in big companies, right? And so I would work with managers and people across the organization to train and teach their employees. And every time, every year I was getting 4.5 stars, 5 stars. My performance reviews were always stellar, but every time I asked for a promotion, every time I went to apply for a higher level position, I was told, oh, just wait. And I kept saying, wait for what? I don't have to wait, I'm ready. And because of the position I was in, I always had kind of inside information about people who were getting promoted, because managers would have to call me and help me print off their performance review. So I would know, like, sometimes you think, like, this person's not, they're not really performing. I knew because managers would call me and say, hey. So I would see all of these people getting promoted, and I just went to the vice president of HR one day. I said, listen, my reputation here, the projects, the things I've done, like, what is the issue? Like, what's the issue? Why am I continually getting overlooked and told to wait when other people are flying by me? And, I know that I'm performing at a high level. And so I got tired of this, a Black man or a Black person in an organization can get to a certain level, or we're only going to keep one of you up here. The rest of you guys got to stay down there. And so I just got tired of it. It was a real blow to my self-esteem to be like, why am I putting in 12 hours a day for this organization? Why am I not taking my vacations and working through lunch hours and missing appointments and all these kinds of things for this company that doesn't even care about me? Right. And I had to question myself, like, where did this come from? Where did this idea that this corporate job is everything? And, obviously it stemmed from my childhood and my mom saying, get yourself a job. And so I had to check myself, and I was just tired of being overlooked. I was tired of, putting in 1,000% effort, because, us as Black people, we feel we have to be even better than everyone else. And even that wasn't good enough. And so I just stopped complaining and asked myself that question: what am I going to do to change my situation?
Very interesting. Marcus,
Yes. So so I'll share this with you. It's I still consider it actually funny, even though it won't be funny to you, but it's funny. So when I was in policing, and John, I'm sure I've shared this with you many times. So I had grown so when I was in policing and throughout my sort of youth, I used to always shave my head. And I was in policing and I let my hair grow about this much, okay? Not even an inch, half an inch of hair. And I had an officer one day tell me to cut my hair. And yeah, so I looked at him, and I'm gonna have to swear because this is how it really went down. And so I said to him, "Did you get promoted?" And he said, "No." I said, "So we're still the same rank?" And he said, "Yeah." So I said, "Well, then shut the fuck up. You're not my boss, right? Like, who are you?" Right. And he got beet red, and he told me again. He doubled down, cut your hair, guy." And so I looked at him and said, "Oh, I realized what's just happened." And he kind of paused, and I said, "You thought I was a tanned white guy when my head was shaved. You didn't realize that I was black until you saw a little bit of an afro." And he went redder, and I said, "This must be so embarrassing because you've forgotten all the racist stuff you said in front of me." And now he's beet red, and so he triples down and tells me to cut my hair. And I look at him, I said, "Now I'm going to grow this shit forever." All right. And I said, "So," and he looked at me and I went, "In fact, I'm going to grow dreads." Now imagine this in policing. So I go to my boss. My boss at the time was this old white guy, old British guy. I walk in and I'm thinking I'm going to get some pushback. And I'm like, "Hey, boss." He's like, "What?" I said, "I'm going to grow my hair." And he goes, "I don't care. I don't give a shit what you do." And I said, "Well, I just want you to know I'm going to grow some dreads." And he's like, "As long as it follows the rules, don't care." Right? So I share that because here is a story of a younger white guy pushing back on me. And here's an older white guy that we all believe it's the old guys are the ones that create the barriers. And so I want to share it with everybody listening. We can't make assumptions about anybody. We have to give people the opportunity to present themselves as who they are. So I grow my hair. Now I've got these little tiny dreads. They're about maybe an inch and a half. I can still put them in my hat. I come walking into the station one day, and the top boss of the station, in front of a bunch of other officers, says to them out loud, "Somebody go investigate that guy." So that's code, right? I hear this and I'm like, that's kind of racist. But at this point, I'm willing to take this on, right? I'm committed. I'm like, you can dance around what you're saying until you actually take a direct shot at me. I'm going to just ignore it because I know it's going to bother you, that I don't take it on. A couple weeks go by. And so I have to tell you the whole context. This is pretty important. I get a call and it's a fight. And at this point, I'm working in Malvern, 2 young black guys fighting. So I show up, my sergeant shows up, I get out of the car, I walk towards the young men. They look around, they see me in full uniform with little dreads, and they stop fighting. They're stunned. So I'm looking at, I can't understand why these kids stop fighting. They look at me, they're like, "Are you allowed to grow dreads as a cop?" I said, "Well, so far so good." And they look at me and they go, "Wow, that's really cool." Okay, so here's the impact. They saw cultural similarity and they stopped fighting. They were so astounded by this. My sergeant sees this and can't believe that just the mere fact that I have these little dreads has now solved a problem. These kids have attached. So about a week goes by, and they have what's called a training day. All the police officers from the division, they're all sort of in the same thing. And the same top boss, I come walking in, there's probably about 60 cops in the room. The top guy looks at my supervisor and says, "What's with curly head over there?" And everybody's kind of like, you can hear a pin drop. They're like, "Ooh." My sergeant says to him, "The community likes it." And he says, "I don't give a shit what the community thinks." Okay. So fast forward now, like a couple weeks, and they introduce the neighborhood resource position. They have 8 positions available. I'm the only one that's been working with youth in Scarborough. I apply for the position, and my boss says, don't even bother applying. You're not going to get it. Right? Mm-hmm. So I do the math, and I look at my boss, and I'm like, well, there's a math problem here. There are 8 positions, and only one guy's actually applied for it. I said, what are we doing? And it came down to the fact that they wanted me to cut my hair. Not my immediate boss, but the top guy. Right? So that's the barrier, right? So I kept my hair, and I watched them struggle to fill these spots, right? But, you know, I share this with you all on the panel and with whoever's listening, is that, you know, sometimes the barrier you face is actually the only way you get your strength, is you have to be up against the barrier to realize what you can do, right? You don't always know what you're capable of unless you have something that forces, much like weightlifting, right? You have to lift the weight that is too heavy for you in order to get that strength, right? And I've always found it fascinating. I to this day, I am glad I went through that, because it also sent a signal to the world of policing that I wasn't simply going to toe a line because I needed the safety of policing. I was there for the right reasons, doing the right thing. And, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes, right?
Yes, absolutely. And when you did decide to cut your hair, did that take you through an emotional shift? Like,
it didn't. It took me to marriage. That's where it took me. Yeah. So it didn't end happily, my friend, because we ended up splitting years later, but whole other story. But I wasn't attached to it that way, right? Because I think that's the other component with some things, is to be mindful that when you take up a battle, sometimes you got to take up a battle and make sure you don't make the battle emotional, because that's kind of sometimes how they drag you into stuff. People sometimes drag you into something so that you do attach emotionally, and when it's over, you don't let go. You now make it some mission when it's not a mission. Right? So they've now taken you off course, and you're creating this identity of yourself when really you needed to win a battle and be ready to put it down and get back on what your objective is. I'll put it. Yeah.
I was literally speaking to someone about that recently too. I was having issues at work where I was feeling targeted. Like I felt like there were people who were complaining about things that were not valid because they had a personal issue with me. And at the time, like I was very enraged by the whole thing. And I was like, I'm going to talk to my boss. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that, I'm going to say whatever. Like I had all these ideas of all the things that I was going to say that was going to get my point across. And I was so passionate about it. And then waiting a few weeks, I was like, wait, let me let this marinate for a bit. Because sometimes if you act right when you are hot, like you go way left, a thing that was not or should not have been a huge issue at the time. If I acted on it and said what I wanted to say, that would probably put me on the chopping block before I'm ready to be there. So I was glad that I took the time to calm down and let it marinate for a little bit. And then having a discussion with my boss, and everything was good. Like my review, everything was great. And so I'm like, you see, and I said to my friend, I'm like, see, if I talked to her when I was feeling how I was feeling, things would have went a different trajectory. Sometimes you got to just sit with it for a second and be like, okay, let me just see how this plays out a little bit before I act off of emotion and put myself in a worse off position. Represent myself in that way, because the problem with it too is when we say certain things, we can say it the same way someone else says, but when we say it because of our inflection, our voices, we're passionate, we're aggressive, like all these words start coming out because we emote and we express ourselves in different ways, and a lot of people are intimidated or threatened by that. So we don't have the same runway to be as expressive as others, because others are given the room to have a wide range of emotions. But when we show we're having a bad day, it's suddenly, oh, you're being negative, you're bringing down the team. Like we don't get that same room to show all of
We
our.
need a higher level of emotional intelligence than everybody else.
Yep.
We have to be aware of our, what's going on in our body at any given time. Our facial expressions, how we move, how we react. So, as Black men, we have to have a higher level of emotional intelligence. And we have to sometimes, like you did, I think you did a great job just cooling off, because, any infliction in our voice comes across as I've heard people yelling at people in the workplace, and they, people just take it. And I raise my voice a half an octave. I'm 6'4". It's like, oh, whoa, Danny, calm down. It's like, I'm not yelling at you. I'm getting my point across in a very assertive way. And so we have to have a higher level of emotional intelligence than other people.
If I could add, though, I think the other thing to this is that we also do it to each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think, I went away this weekend for something to do with work, and I noticed that we do it to each other. We outwardly want to say other people do it to us, but we forget how often we do these things to each other, and we don't check each other, right? And I think, we need to do a better job of allowing each other to be able to express that all. Like, if you want to raise your voice, I owe it to you to give you the space to raise your voice, because you might not get it anywhere else. Right? And I actually owe it to you to say, hey, Danny, man, you got a minute. Right? John, remember you and I had this conversation. I said to John, we need to start the cuss too bad word movement. And you just pick up the phone, you cuss too bad word to your brother, and you're done, you're good. And I say, John, you good? And he's like, I'm good. And we're like, we're good. Because if we can't do that with each other, if we can't allow each other to cry, to show insecurity amongst ourselves, and yet we're going to go out and ask a bunch of people without the same set of circumstances to do it, I think we're being unfair. We're not even willing to do it here, right? And so, I think there are a lot of things that we really need to develop amongst each other, because once we do it, we then know that we can do it anywhere. So my thing with this kind of stuff is, forget about safe places, think about safe people. The four of us are safe people, which means wherever we see each other, we automatically know the space is safe, because we are safe people for each other. It doesn't matter where we are. If Danny decides he wants to cuss too bad word to me, I don't care where we are. If somebody's like, oh my God, that man is threatening that man, I'd be like, hey, hang on a second, man. This is my brother, he's venting. Right. And they would go, oh, okay. Like, you're okay? Yeah, I'm okay. He needs to release some stuff. We're good. Right? We need to do this for each other, because once we do that, we give permission for people to observe us the way we really truly are, and we're good, right? We're good, right? But until we're able to do that for one another, I don't know how we can ask others to take up that position, right? We have to do that, right?
Yes. So just listening to all of your situations and journeys, would you say that there has been some trauma embedded within your journeys?
Absolutely.
And absolutely, yeah. And do you feel that your healing of your trauma has to be an ongoing process?
I think it does. Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, healing, I think it's ongoing, but I think everything starts with an awareness, right? Like, you got to be aware that you have trauma. You got to be aware of how you feel in certain situations around certain people. Like, so there has to be an awareness first, and not let me just push through this thing, or let me just, I know I got to deal with this. Like, there has to be some type of awareness first for me. And I feel like once you are aware, then it's the question of, what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I always say too that, like, if it triggers you, you're not healed from it. If it bothers you, it's because it's an area of your life that you haven't healed yet, and you need to look into that. Like, why does that bother you? Why does someone raising their voice trigger you? Why does someone saying a certain word or referring to as a certain thing, why does it trigger you? What in your past was that an issue for you that you suppressed and you thought it was dealt with, and then it's coming up now? It's because you're not healed from that, and that opens the door for you to be like, okay, this is the area of my life that I need to work on, because this still bothers me. I wasn't aware that it did, but this situation highlighted that it's still an issue for me.
I love that.
And in a new perspective, like, you're in a different place than you were when that traumatic thing happened. And I think sometimes you see something as a certain way while you're in it and when it's near, but like, as you step back and it's years has passed and different life experiences, was it really the way that you thought it was? That's the first thing. Second thing is, do you now maybe see it from a different perspective because of maybe the limited information that everybody had involved with the situation? And then the third thing, if it was really traumatic, it's like Andre was saying, okay, well, how can I move forward? How can I move through? I've had to have a lot of difficult conversations with my parents, with other people in my life that have caused me harm that were very uncomfortable. And what I realized, it's not about what they're going to say. This is my way to release it. Whatever they said was irrelevant. And so, but it started with the awareness. Like, I know that this was blocking me from, romantic relationships, things that have happened, with my mom or with my parents. So I had to do something about it. Yes. And once I made the choice, I didn't know if I was doing the right thing or the wrong thing. All I knew was I had to have difficult conversations with people that were in my life. I didn't know how it was going to go, but I just thought that that's what I needed in order to release and move on. Now, I'm not saying that's what everybody should do. I'm just saying it starts with an acknowledgement. And then if you need professional help or you need some guidance, get that. Because we have these blinders. There's things that are blocking you from your blessings that you don't even see. Most of us don't even realize it, right? And we go throughout life just realizing, like, just stumbling through life, but we don't realize that, like Andre said, that thing is a trigger, or this is a trigger, or every time I talk to my mom, it's we know it, but we don't really know it, right? And if we got to seek out help. We have to get this. Look, it takes strength to have difficult conversations. It takes strength to ask for help. You're not weak when you reach out to somebody for help as a man, as a Black man. That is the ultimate show of strength. That's the ultimate show of strength.
I like
to ask somebody for help as a Black man, that takes a lot of strength.
I like what you're saying here, because that allows me to go into this way of asking for help.
Yeah, John, if I could just add one thing to what we're saying about this, about the trauma thing, is that I think, especially in our context, what we're talking about, a lot of the trauma that we experience can't be reconciled, right? And so there's also a point in which we have to accept we've done the best we can with all the available tools, whether it's therapy, talking to family, reflection, journaling, you name it. And it is unreconciled. And at some point we have to be okay. Otherwise it starts to become part of our identity or our lifestyle, and it becomes an anchor, right? And I think that that's a hard thing, right? But if we are going to continue on the journey to getting to, as Danny would say, are the best version of ourselves, it's going to have some wrinkles that come with us. And if we try to reconcile every trauma to its end, what do you do if there is no reconciliation for that one? Do you stop pursuing things at the cost of, right? Sometimes you got to say to this thing, I did the best that I could with you, and I'm done with you, right? You're gonna pop up. You might be a trigger somewhere down the road, and when I see you then, I'll deal with you then, but I'm not gonna live with you rattling around on everything I do.
That's true.
I'm gonna put you aside and continue on to everything else. We've got loved ones that need us to be present. We have ambitions that we need to go after. We have successes that we have to celebrate. But if we're still stuck, people see it, they feel it, they can't do anything about it because it's unreconciled. So sometimes we have to just say, hey man, I got to drop you here. I know you'll pop up somewhere else. I'll deal with you then. But I'm good. I got to keep going, right?
Sometimes those difficult discussions are necessary because people don't always know what they did to you.
Yeah.
Like, I talked to my mother about things from the past. Like, you really realize, especially Caribbean parents, like they have a whole other recollection of how things went down, and you're like, that's not what happened. So a lot of times they're not aware of certain things because of the cultural norms at the time. Certain things were fine, and now looking back at today's lens, you're like, that was not okay. So it's just discussing with them and letting them. A lot of times they're not going to hear you, to be honest, because a lot of them are stubborn in their generation where they're like, it is what it is, and I'm not apologizing or whatever. But like sometimes you do have to let people know, like, hey, you hurt me. This is how I felt in this situation, because you can't expect people to know, and you have to stop expecting you in other people. Just because you would know something and you would operate in a certain way doesn't mean that everyone else operates or thinks the same way.
Hey, Andre, those different recollections in my family, they're called Appletons. I don't know what they're called in your house, but I'm just putting it out there. A few of them I think were Appletons.
I like that. So when Danny, when you were saying in terms of asking for help is the most powerful thing that a Black man can do, but what does that do in terms of vulnerability? Because in order to ask, you have to make yourself very vulnerable. And if you do take that step forward and ask, and you don't receive what you thought you were going to receive, how do you pick yourself back up to ask again?
That's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard. It's very difficult when you are brave enough to step up and ask for help, and the person you ask or the organization or whatever sort of doesn't give you what you need, or the guidance or the assistance or whatever. and it's a hard place to be in. But I think sometimes we have to understand that, you know, the people that we're going to, or the people that we're reaching out to they just might not have the capabilities to help you, or they might not be in a place to help you. It's just like when you decide to do something better for yourself, it's kind of what Marcus was saying earlier. Some people will doubt you. Some people will actually even hate on you, your own friends and family members, because they see a reflection of themselves in you. They know there's things that they need to do, they need to change, but they're not at a place that they can do that. So the easiest thing for them to do is to hate on you for trying to better yourself. Well, it's the same as when you go to ask someone for help. When you asking them for help could be a trigger for them. It could be they're not equipped to help you. And so they may come across as being harsh or diminish how you're feeling. But once you come back and step back and look at that, you have to say, like, that's just one individual, right? You have to kind of build that courage and that strength back up again to ask someone else for help, right? And I think we have to kind of be, you know, I call it like a life support network. You gotta know who you're asking for help. You gotta know who you're telling your goals and your dreams to. And that's why I say you have to pay attention to what's going on inside of you and what's going on with your relationships with people. Yes. Like, you know, every time you ask a certain friend or a family member, every time you tell them about a goal or a dream, they shut you down. Then don't tell them about that goal or dream again. Or that one time that you mustered up enough courage to say, look, you know, I'm just not feeling myself, and they shut you down. You got to make notes of that, because what happens is we keep punishing ourselves, going to the same negative people, asking them for help, guidance, to believe in us, and we end up in the same place that we started in.
But what is that? Is that just to seek validation from those particular people?
Well, you want people that you love and who love you to believe in you, right? You want them to want you to better yourself. You want them to believe in the dream. I mean, how many dreams and goals have you had that just passed you by? So when you actually take action on one, you're like, okay, this is the one I'm taking action on. And then you go and you don't get that support and that love and that validation. But I'll often tell people, like, it's not people's responsibility to believe in you, it's your dream. Like, why should somebody else believe in your dream? It goes back to what I said, progress equals belief. So once you start to get some, so in 2014, when I decided to write my book, You Have the Keys Now Drive, I knew this was going to happen. I was like, I'm going to tell people I'm going to write a book. They're going to laugh and say, that's stupid. Mm-hmm. And so I just told people, I said, hey, I'm writing my book. And most people laughed. Okay, you're not a writer. When did you become a writer? Right. And it was in that moment I said, okay, this progress equals belief thing. So what happened was I designed the book cover and I showed a few people and they're like, why you design the book cover? You're not writing a book. I started a Facebook page, invited a few people. I launched a website and people are like, is this guy really going to write? Every step of the way, I started believing in myself because I was holding myself accountable through other people. People can't hold you accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable through other people.
Absolutely.
And as every step of the way, people started to, whoa, this dude is going to write the book. And then they got invited to the book launch. So it's tough. It's tough to really put yourself out there and to ask for help, to not get it. But we also have to understand that the people that we're asking, it might be outside of their capabilities, right? They might not be equipped to give us the help that we need. Absolutely. We might need to go to somewhere else. We might need professional help. We might need a mentor, somebody who's been there and done that. Like so we even have to kind of be conscious of who we're going to for help. And sometimes you don't have that option. You're just in a place where you just need help from whoever's there, and you need someone to listen in that moment. And I understand that. But we can't be discouraged if that person can't serve us the way we need to, because there's so many people in this world, right? We just got to find one of the right ones to give us some guidance.
I enjoy everything that you said there. For those that are listening, you have the option to also write a question. Any thoughts in the chat there, feel free to do so. I'm looking at the chat now, so I would be able to kind of reiterate and echo some of the things that you're asking or saying. So feel free to do so.
John, somebody asked a question.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Question for Marc. What are your thoughts on Black men joining the police force? Do you think it's conducive to their mental health?
It's a very good question. So I would say this. Joining, I think this comes back to this actual topic. I don't think anybody should do anything as the ambassador for all of something. Do it for you, right? When I joined policing, I didn't join as, Marc representing the Jamaican community as a Toronto police officer, right? I had a bad situation with police. I was not impressed with them. It was a dream of mine from when I was young, and it took the interaction of a bad cop to help me realize I could be a cop. And I told them that in my interview. They asked me why I want to become a cop. I told them about my bad situation. They said, what does that have to do with you becoming a cop? I said, you hired a really bad police officer. I can be better than him, so you should hire me. That was the sales pitch, right? It wasn't about representing anything, right? Other than human decency, right? So do I think Black men should join the police force? So first thing I will say to my Black community, it's not a force, it's a service. So if you consistently think of them as a force, your psychology and how you interact has already given more power than they're asking for. They're called the Toronto Police Service, Durham Regional Police Service, Peel Police Service. There's no force anymore. So even from a mindset position, treat them as a service, which means they're there to serve you, right? Yes, there's all kinds of historical things with Black people in the police, but if you allow yourself to say, oh no, they're a service, then how you approach the situation, you realize they're there for you. They might be assholes in how they deliver it. You can get bad service when you get to Tim Hortons, but you don't say, I'm going into the Tim Hortons force, right? So start with the mindset of service. allow them to serve you. And if they go off track, there are accountability pieces, right? So I'd say don't join because you're joining for your racial identity. Join because you want to make wherever you live better with the insight of what it means to be you in whatever that is. Not just your race, not just your gender, not just your faith, right? We are, every single one of us represents so many people, right? And so, but at the same time, you are not responsible for the voices of all those people when you join something like the police, right? Because you can't possibly represent that many people. But what you can do is you can go in and be a great example of what it means to be a human being. And whoever wants to attach to you and claim you as theirs for whatever reason, let them. If there are a bunch of Rastas that said, look, we got a Rasta cop, I'm not a Rasta, but if that's how they want to identify, great, right? And so I think that's the first piece. Do you think it's conducive to their mental health? So mental health and policing is a passion of mine. And what I'll tell you that is unique to that profession that people don't think about, it's the only profession in which you're dealing all the time with other people's traumas. That's why they call the police. Nobody calls the police and says, hey, I'm experiencing a great mental wellness day. Would you like to come over for a coffee? They're in crisis.
Yeah.
So the police respond to trauma, but we forget that they go home to their own traumas as well. So they are people that are living 24 hours a day dealing with trauma. Their family trauma, our family trauma. And we wonder why they are the way they are, is because they don't get a break from trauma, right? And so they have trauma, they have a high level of scrutiny. I'm not asking anybody to forgive them for bad behavior. Bad behavior, I don't care under any circumstances. If the job's too much, any job, if you're underperforming, you should be respectful of your own dignity and leave. I'm not doing it well enough. Don't wait to be fired. Leave. It's not, you're not aligned. Leave. But I am empathetic to that job because it can wear on you, right? So I would say this, that if you join for the right reasons, while you're dealing with full-time trauma on all sides, the only reason why I'm on this video is because I met John Jack while I was a police officer. So while I was dealing with trauma, I was also meeting people that I admire, that I was willing to listen to trauma because I knew who I was doing it for. I was serving John Jack. While he's working with, gang-involved youth, I was doing it for John Jacks, right? And so anybody that thinks about policing as a profession and is worried about your mental health, if you're doing things for the right reasons, when you hit up against the traumas, the right reasons are what buoy your spirit. That's what keeps you going, because you remember why you're doing it and who you're serving, right? You're serving the Danny Stones, right? You're serving the John Jacks. You're serving the Andre Dwights, right? Those are who you're doing it for, right?
Absolutely valid. Thank you for that. I want to share something. I don't know if I could share my screen. Hopefully. Oh, good. Thank you. This is what I want to share. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
For each of you, I want to know if you've ever used something like this and address each of those things on that wheel there. If you don't mind sharing in terms of each of those points that are made. I feel, I need, I forgive, I celebrate, I release, I trust. Would you be able to identify all those things at this moment? Excuse me.
If I'm being honest, at this exact moment, no. But some of these things, yeah. So like you're just saying in general, like do we encompass all these things at this current moment?
Absolutely.
I feel for me, a lot of some of these things are work in progress, so I'm not there yet, which is okay. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to be working through something. We don't have all the answers. We're not all where we want to be, or we're on our pathway. So there's a few things that I definitely am working through and need to forgive and get to certain points before I'm able to release everything. I'm not there yet.
Yes, everything you said is valid, Andre, because when I look at this, and this was shared from a friend of mine, Alethea Kador, and when I look at it in terms of when I was telling Danny that in order to ask for help, you have to be very vulnerable, and you have to have the trust in order to ask for help. And if the person that you did propose the question to in terms of asking for help did something in the past where kind of rub you the wrong way, you have to find a place for you to forgive. You also have to be in tune with your feelings. I feel this way with me asking for help. This is what I need, not want, but this is what I need from you or from all of you. And if I'm able to achieve some of that, it will allow me to celebrate the successes and the things that I want to do. And it also will allow me to release some of the discouragement, some of the shame, some of all the stuff that I probably carry, which leads me to building trust. But does that seem valid?
No, this is very valid. I think a lot of it does start with, and that's why I'm saying, like, we have to pay attention to what's going on, usually in our body. What's happening in our body is usually a reflection of, what's going on inside. So, starting with the I feel, like, how do you feel? How do you feel inside your body? How do you feel, like, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit? How do you feel right now? And I think just those two words, I feel, is a lot for a Black man, as we kind of move through these things, it is difficult. I need, I want, but that the beginning is tough. There've been so many times that I couldn't even say I feel. Yeah, my wife or my girlfriend or a friend or my mom, somebody would like, how do you feel? Yes. For me to just say those two words, I feel, it was a lot. Absolutely. And it might have been a lot because I couldn't even articulate how I was feeling. Or there were times I couldn't, there was times I was afraid to, there was times I just didn't want to because, I'm a Black man. I'm supposed to be strong all the time. Who got time for feelings, right? So that start can be a lot for some Black men.
I was even thinking too about asking for help. It's like we have to address the barriers in asking for help as a Black man. As Danny mentioned, we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to have it all. We're not supposed to need anybody for anything. We're supposed to take care of our families and provide and not be in need of anything. So it's like breaking down those barriers. And I know for myself, I've always been hyper independent as a result of my traumas of being disappointed countless times. Like the times where I asked for help and wasn't able to receive it, or I felt like people should have known that I was in a situation where I needed help and it was not offered. So it's like when you're constantly disappointed by people, it builds up your guard and you're like, why ask for help if I'm going to be shut down? Or I'm venting to the wrong person about it and they're listening to my problems so they can run to someone else and tell someone else at my vulnerable moments and stuff like that. So it's like for us as Black men, breaking down the barrier for us to be able to feel safe enough and vulnerable enough to ask for help. Because that for many of us is not something that we're comfortable with. It's not something that we were taught was okay. Especially because a lot of us come from like a Caribbean background where our parents were too proud to beg. So a lot of them, when they needed help themselves, they would carry all the burdens for their family. Their kids wouldn't know, no one else would know. So a lot of us are carrying that kind of trauma also because we knew that our mother or grandmother was strong. They did everything on their own. They didn't ask anyone for any help. So a lot of us are in that same mindset where we need things and we're afraid to ask for it because we don't want to be judged. We don't want to be gossiped about. And then we learn like when we're disappointed in those situations, we're like, okay, see, this is why I didn't ask for help. So it's like, we have to get to the place where we break down those barriers, where we feel comfortable enough, have the right people around us who support us and not here to judge and look at us differently for those moments where we are vulnerable, when we do need another person to step in and help us or guide us in the right way to get to the outcome that we're looking for.
Yes, you use that word there, strong.
It's a traumatic word now. We all want a job. Now it's like, no, I want a soft life.
So yeah, if I could sort of add to this, the I feel thing. So I stumbled into this a couple of years back, and my daughter was experiencing, I saw a shift, an emotional shift in her. And I asked her, is everything okay? And she said yes, but it wasn't. You could tell. Eyes welled up with tears, and in a deep commitment to help her, I moved past what I was seeing and said, if you don't tell me what's wrong, I can't help you.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it sounded differently than it came out. And right after I said it, I was like, wow, that's like the equivalent of blaming the victim. I didn't sleep well. And the next day, I went back to her and I said, I have to apologize. That's not what I meant. And so I said, can we start over? And we started over on this. And this taps into what Danny was talking about. Maybe we can't describe what we feel. Because we haven't been allowed to explore that.
Yeah.
We haven't raised our boys to talk about feelings and to give them a vocabulary sufficient enough to describe that.
Okay.
We've given angry, happy, binary, right? No spectrum, right? So this is what happened. Yeah. So this is what happened. So I said to her, is it fair? Is this a fair statement that you can't describe what you're feeling? And she said, yeah. She said, that's a fair statement. So I said, okay, let's try something. So I said to her, if your mind was weather, what weather would it be? And she said, it's thunderstorms, hurricane, lightning, tornadoes, and earthquakes. Now, I don't know about all of you, but those weather events, I'm not booking a vacation during any of those.
No.
So I now was tapped in, not to the details that were causing it, but I had exposure to what she feels. Okay. So we were then able to do some activities to help her through those feelings. Now, the reason why I share it with you is in my bio, I do presentations to the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police. And shocking as it may seem, the police aren't the most emotionally available human beings on the planet. I hope you're all sitting for that statement. But I then shared this with the police as a technique, as a tool for police mental health check-ins. And the OPP do that with each other now. So these grown adult police officers say, hey, how's your weather? And they like it because at every rank, they're telling each other how they feel without any implications about the details that could get people in peril. So I share it with you all because it might be a tool of communication that we can build out to say, Danny, hey, how's your weather? And Danny can tell Andre, hey, man, it's light sprinkles today. And we go, okay, you good? You need an umbrella? Can I give you an umbrella? Right? And we're able to communicate without getting into each other's business. I can't run over to John and say, yo, did you hear about Danny? Yeah, man, thunder and lightning. I haven't told anything.
Yeah.
So the details, the minutia of what's going on, we can't create fodder. But what we can do is we can give access to our feelings, and then we can check on each other and say, hey man, is it still raining where you are? No man, the sun's back. Good. Right? So I offer it because it's a tool that I've shared with students as well. And they seem to feel comfortable using it as a language to talk about feelings. And I think if we get anything and it's universal. When somebody says it's sunny, we all like the sun, right? And if you say, hey man, I'm sunburned, we're like, man, you had too much of a good thing, and now you're swinging back the other. We gotcha, right? So I share it with you because I think, if we can create language that allows us to talk to one another, feel safe, be safe people, to create those safe spaces using this language, we're making a shift, right? We're allowing each other to be the full spectrum of emotions that we deserve to be, right? We deserve to be all the emotions that exist in humanity. We don't have to narrow our bandwidth and only be within here when the human emotion conditions are this big. Black men should be this. We don't have to be this, right?
That's good. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely valid.
I love that. I'm like, I really love that. Yeah.
I was letting that one soak in terms of identifying your emotions with the weather.
Because it was important that you said about fodder, because that's why a lot of Black men are afraid to share their emotions and things they're going through, because you're afraid that you tell the wrong person and they're telling you these are vulnerable things which is why a lot of us keep a lot of things bottled up inside. So it's like when you're identifying it as weather, they don't know what the issue is, the storm that you're going through, and they can't gossip about that as Marc was saying. So I love that.
Yeah, and the thing is, none of us are therapists. We don't need to address the details. We need to be there for each other emotionally, right? Like if you tell me it's the cat that died versus grandma, I don't mean it coldly, but it's irrelevant because you're still grieving. You're still raining, right? And why should I determine my level of support for you based on what I think the cat means to you or grandma? I might think grandma means more to you than the cat. You're like, actually, no. Like, the cat means more to me than grandma. I'm going to the cat funeral. I don't know if I'm making a grandma, right? So sometimes the details are the red herring. We just need to make sure that whatever weather event you're going through is what I'm trying to support you with. The details are if you choose to share them, that's up to you. But I don't need them to be supportive of you. I don't need them to be your safe person. Right?
I love that. It's like asking for prayers, and it's like, pray for me. I don't need to know the reason why, but just pray for me. And as the same thing with your feelings and what you're
I think as men, we're problem solvers. We're kind of tuned to like, we need to solve the problem, and especially as Black men. So I think what we have to understand as Black men and supporting each other is that it's going to be awkward or uncomfortable if one of your boys or your friends or another Black man comes to you with something that you might not be equipped for, but you don't have to fix it. Sometimes they might just need you to listen, right? And so we have to condition ourselves that we don't need to have the answers to support another Black man. You just need to listen. And if it gets to the point where they're like, look, man, can you help me or figure this out? Then you kind of lean in and you can try to figure out, do I have the tools, the skills, and the resources, or let's try to figure this out together. Let me try to help you get help. But I think initially we have to understand that we don't have to have the answer. Sometimes another brother just needs to talk. He needs to get it out. And in some cases, that's enough. It's like, oh man, I'm so happy I got that out. Oh, yeah. I'm good now. Right? Like sometimes it's just that. And then there are times when, you need more help. But I think we're hesitant sometimes to kind of hear from another brother. Yeah, man, I really need to talk to you about something. You'll kind of avoid that brother's call. You're like, yeah, man, I've just been busy. When all he wants you to do is maybe just listen. Just listen. And then like Marcus said, okay, bro, or something seems off. How's your weather? So I think we kind of have to get out of this. You need to be the problem solver mode all the time. Sometimes you just need to listen.
And you need to tell me what's wrong versus there's something wrong. I just want to tell you that I'm feeling this way versus going into detail. Because sometimes we're not ready to express everything we're feeling, or we're embarrassed, or we're afraid to share certain things. It's just like, I'm not well. You don't need to know the reason why, but I need your support. And sometimes we need to all learn to offer support without needing to know what the reason is and why.
Absolutely.
That's true. Yeah.
I think even the language, like, when was the last time any of us said to somebody, hey, what's right? right? Like what's wrong kind of
Right?
already leans a person into a form of judgment, right? Yeah, right. And it's like, start with, again, like, how are you feeling? Like, hey man, how are you feeling? Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Right? And if the face is screw face, and you've already established, hey, if your mind was weather and you see screw face, hey man, how's your weather? Right? Like, how's the weather going? Like, reading the body language rather than the what's wrong. It's like, hey, how's your weather doing? And allow a person to tell you that weather location wherever they are, right?
Yeah.
Well, check in with people. Go ahead.
What would your current well-seasoned self go back in time and tell your unseasoned self about life?
Stay away from quarter pounders.
I would say to my younger self, trust your instincts, because there's so many times where I second guessed myself and my internal compass was never wrong. And life has showed me throughout many times that you were right. Listen to your first mind. There's a reason why you have a certain like guidance in you that lets you know when things aren't right, they don't feel right, and you don't necessarily have to be able to explain those things or articulate why you feel a certain way. Just like when, as Caribbean people say, my spirit don't take her. So it's like where you basically like, you don't like, you feel certain energy and you know someone's not right. You can't explain it, you can't articulate it, but you feel certain things. So you know that this person is going to ruin your life, and you knew this and you proceeded into that storm. And then in the end, you're like, I knew this. There was reasons why I felt that I shouldn't have had this person around. I shouldn't have allowed this person to have access to me. We have these things within ourselves that warn us. They're our internal warning systems that let us know that something's not right. Do not proceed. I don't need to know the reason why, but like sometimes we always know, but a lot of times we're stubborn and we're like, well, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm still gonna do it anyways. And I always say to people, like when they're like, oh, this person, like I always say that no human being is that good of an actor. We know within ourselves that this person's not right. There are always warning flags if you pay attention to certain behaviors and certain habits. In the end, like when people try and act like they're totally surprised, and like if we're being honest, if you were paying attention to the signs, the times that they did this, the times they did that, it wasn't that out of left field if you're honest about what is really happening. So just, I would always tell my younger self, like, listen to your instincts. You don't have to have a reason on why you act a certain way or whatnot, but just listen and trust your instincts.
Okay. Danny?
Yeah, I would go back to myself and now that I know this, I would say, look, you're naturally curious, creative, resourceful, and whole. You don't need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. You're allowed to explore your curiosity, your creativity. You're resourceful. You can figure things out when you fall off track or you have a failure or a setback. You already have it within you to figure out how to move through it. But don't quit. You're naturally curious, creative, resourceful, and whole. You just have to learn how to tap into it when you need to. That's what I would tell myself.
Love that.
Hey, while you're back there, tell me that too, okay? Because I could have used that, my brother. So I think it shares some of what Danny said, but I think when I look back, I'll point to the whole policing experience. From high school, I wanted to become a cop. It took me seeing a terrible example of what I wanted to be for me to believe I could be that. So I would go back and tell my young self to embrace failure and not allow failure to be part of my identity. Now, I'm okay with failure. I know it's not me, it's just part of a process, right? I quit jobs, or when a boss tries to tell me that they have a different vision of the work than me, before I would have made it internalized that it was somehow something about me. I was not good, suitable. I would emotionalize it, right? Now when you tell me things, I'm like, you see that differently than me, and I don't agree with how you see it. I'm out of here. I'm not twisting myself up to fit your vision. And if I had that line of thinking from when I was young, Well, I wouldn't be on this panel either, so I don't regret it. But the notion of knowing that failure is really a sign of you pushing yourself, just as much as success is a sign of you pushing yourself. The two of them are signs of you pushing yourself. Just one of them, you take it and you go, oh, I must be less than, right? And I think the same might even be true of success, is we think that our success is our identity. These are processes, right? They're still not who we are, right? They are, as Danny says, progress is belief, right? That's what they are. But at a moment's notice, we can still decide that whatever we succeed at, we can still say, you know what? I still got another chapter, right? And so, yeah, right. So I think that, to me, that's really the thing is, and I try to instill it in young people, is like, make the mistakes and don't attach yourself emotionally to them. They're not who you are, right? And don't do the same. Don't do it with success either. Don't go, well, I am this, right? Like, because it limits you, right? It limits you so much, right?
You know, in my book, go ahead.
What I've learned too is what I've been learning the past few years. It's never about you in terms of how people treat you. It's you realize, like, you always internalize everything and think that, oh, it's me. People are operating based on how they feel about themselves. Like, it's never about you. Like, they could have a bad day, be mean to you, and you're thinking something I did. It's like a lot of things are never about you. People treat people based on how they feel about themselves, and it's like, that's a constant thing that I'm learning, because you have a tendency to be sensitive and to internalize things and think that maybe they're never about you. Like, you start to realize that, like, it's never about you.
Valid. Absolutely valid.
Danny was gonna say something.
Yes.
Now I was just gonna say, you know, in my book, I wrote this book called "You Have the Keys, Now Drive," and you know, one of the chapters is giving yourself permission to fail.
Yes.
Like, it's okay to fail. Like, when you see your heroes, when you see people that you admire, when you see people that have quote unquote success or living life on their terms, you never think about their failures. You never think about the 99 times they failed and the one time they succeeded. But the reason that they succeeded was because of the failures. They learned, they readjusted, they bounced back, the resilience, all of that kind of stuff. So we have to give ourselves permission to fail. And if you give yourself permission to fail, that means that you're actually giving yourself permission to succeed, because you'll try different things.
Yeah.
And the way to kind of figure out, you know, what is my gift? What is my talent? What am I supposed to be doing in this world at this time? And I think at this time is important, because when we were young, it's always, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we get locked in on that thing, like that's the only thing that we can be. And then as a man, when you're not that thing, it's kind of internal. You feel like maybe you failed, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to own my own business, and now I don't. So I think it's at that time. What are you curious and passionate about right now? And that gives you permission to change your mind later on. So then that opens up the door for exploration, right? And I think a lot of us just don't give ourselves that opportunity. It's like, we look at life like a report card and we need all A's. You know, life is not like a report card. You don't need all A's. You can get an F, you can get a C, because maybe that's not what you're passionate about. Maybe you don't even care about that, but maybe you have you know, the level of success and joy and happiness in the areas of your life that matter at that time. And that's the thing.
Everyone amplifies their successes, but no one says, this is the time I took an L. This is the time I took an L. Like, look what happens to you, but not the millions of times that you're told no, and the times that things didn't work out. Like, we all amplify our successes. We don't talk about the failures as much. So when it does happen to you, you feel like you've completely failed, but everyone's failing every day. They're just not amplifying it.
So I went through a little exercise when I was making the difficult decision to leave policing. I'll never forget it. I sat down Lake Ontario and I was like, wow, like you were like, this was the pinnacle of your life. This is what you strive to do from when you were 7 years old. And I was scared because I didn't know what am I going to do? Like, right? And what I did was I started to think, I said to myself, I am the common denominator of all of my successes. All the other parts are different. I'm the one constant in all of them. And so I started to think, what have I done in all of my successes? Because therein lies a good blueprint for success for me. Then I looked at the other side and said, I am also the common denominator of all my failures. All the other players are different. So what am I doing to cause my failures? Right? And I started to just kind of go through, and then I had this blueprint of, oh, I do these same things to cause me to fail, and I do these same things to cause me to succeed. Right? And sort of ever since then, I kind of watch these two, right? And I'm like, am I doing from this list? Because if I do too much of this list, I know the outcome. I'm going to fail. I need to find my way back to this other list and stay on this list because I also know what it does, right? And so, you know, I share it because I think it's a really good exercise to go through and be honest. And one of the sort of predominant things that was on both sides was confidence. On the failure list, I didn't believe enough. And on the success list, I probably often believed more than I was capable of, but I really still just believed, right? And so, you know, build out, right? Build out that list of commonalities and you'll see things kind of bubble up, right?
I work with my coaching clients. I developed this thing called the Get It Done system. And what you just described is I call it a success pattern and a failure pattern.
Okay.
Walk people through that kind of exercise to figure out what is your success pattern, what's your failure pattern, so you can identify them.
Yeah.
And you have a starting point every time you try to achieve something else.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. I have, just as a timekeeper, because we have about 5 minutes roughly to go. There's a question here. It says, how can the woman in your life support a Black man feel safe to become vulnerable? So I'm thinking that question is, if a woman is in a Black man's life who is supporting them to feel safe, how is it that they could become vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's giving me or a Black man a space to vent, kind of like what Marcus was saying, like allow him to get it out. Like just allow him to say what he has to say without interruption, without interjection. Just let me say what I need to say, and then you listen. And just the same way sometimes women are just want to vent and we're not supposed to, we just need to listen. They need to understand that maybe that's all we need, right? But we need to be able to just get out what we have to say, uninterrupted, not being judged, and then for that not to be brought up again in other situations. Like we don't need for a woman to bring up, you know, me sharing something that's personal and intimate in another discussion outside of the discussion that we had.
Right.
It's that discussion, it stays there unless we continue that. I think that's what we need. We need that space to be able to express how we're feeling without interruption, without judgment, without it being brought up in a negative way at another time.
Right. And as we were saying before, that sometimes what's needed in any space is just to listen. Right? As you're saying, allow the person, allow the man to just to vent, to say what they need to say, and to listen, which is really important.
Yeah, and the one thing I'd add to that is, so everything Danny said, and I think if you're gonna say anything when this is done, thank them. Thank you for sharing with me. You don't have to say anything else, right? You don't have to offer, I'm here to help you, nothing. The minute somebody gets to that place to be that vulnerable, they've already identified you as a safe person. They already know that, or else they wouldn't have done that. So they've already put a label on you. You're a safe person, which is why I brought this to you. They also know that once you say thank you for sharing, that is also code for I got you for your weather, I got you for whatever. And if they want to come back to you, they know that they can, because they said you're a safe person just by sharing.
I completely enjoy that. Thank you so much. Marc did tell me something years ago. He said there's no such thing as a safe space, only safe people. And that's really powerful, because it really, you have to trust, as in the wheel, you have to have the trust in the person in order for you to release and for you to share what you feel and what you need. Before I close off, what I do want to say is that I appreciate all of you being so transparent and honest. I think it's really important for Black males to have spaces like this and be transparent and be vulnerable and just to be, right? And allow each other to bounce off each other and receive, give and take. And this is what happened here, and I truly appreciate all of you for allowing that to happen. Yeah, I really do. And I respect everyone's views and stance and journey, which was really nice. It was just a whole collage of everything that I'm hoping that our listeners that were participating and listening tonight were able to grab a soundbite from whatever that was said and hopefully apply it to whatever situation they're in, and it for it to be a helpful tool to help someone heal or help them heal, either or, right? And yeah, just closing off, thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing weekend, an amazing week, remainder of the year. And I hope that we could continue these conversations, right? Because I think it's important to continue and build on this so others could be included, right?
So John, I'm glad that you clarified transparency, because I thought it was a light skin joke you were making at me. So thank you for clarifying.
Not today.
I wanted to lighten our mood. So I just
light skin right now.
Yeah. I just listen. You know what? In the midst of all things, no matter how heavy, if we can still share a laugh together, I think it's important. We can be two things at the same time, right?
Yes, we can. I see in the chat it says, thank you all. We should create more opportunities like this. And I echo that. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who tuned in. And I also want to say thanks to my mom. She's on Facebook. I know she's listening in on Facebook. And everybody else who was tuned in on Facebook. So thank you all.
Oh, Daddy, can you reach back behind you, grab the book and hold it up to the screen so it's clear so we can see that? Yeah, it's called You Have the Keys, Now Drive. 5 Keys and 5 Habits to Personal Change. So absolutely. Amazon or wherever, if you need one, just you have the PDF version, or is it only hard copy? Yeah, I do have a PDF version. I have a link where people can grab the PDF version for like $5 if they want it. They can just hit me up on social media at I am Danny Stone everywhere, and I can send you the link to grab the PDF version. And Andre, you're gonna have your site soon for all your stuff?
I'm thinking about it. I thought of a name. The name came to me last week, so
okay, here we go.
Progress.
And Marc, working on some amazing things?
No, not at all.
No, that's okay.
You know what? I'm here. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm about to transition to another job. And I'll share that at some point, but yeah, you know what? I'm here for anybody. So, John, you can share my contact info with anybody. I think we have to create the culture of support. And I think it's critical. And I should say, I forgot. I do have a children's book coming out soon around, it's called Hey Bunny, What's Weather? And it's about using the language of weather to help build resilience.
I love that.
Yeah. So...
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for anyone, well, the Kajenga Wellness Project, you could always go to the website Kajenga Wellness and also to Ifarada Center of Excellence, where you can see all the programming that we have, counseling services, individual services, group services, family services. And it's just a community effort, nonprofit organization where we are serving the Black community and Indigenous community and people of color in Durham. Thank you so much for being part of this, and I look forward to connecting again.
So John, sorry, somebody just asked for if I'd speak at a shelter. So I'm just putting in, and I share it with Danny and Andre, maybe we can put any contact info. I just put it in the chat. I don't know if you guys want to do the same, but I can be reached there. And Andre, Dwight, I hope we stay in touch, man. I want to know how you guys are doing and what's going on. So John, please share my info if you guys don't grab it off the chat.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It was amazing.
Thank you all.
Okay.
So much. Hopefully I spelled that right. I'll leave that up there for a bit and then I'll close off. Someone could take a screen capture, you can take a picture of it. And also if you contact Ifarada Center of Excellence, we can also follow up with details too. All right, you all.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. All right, later.